Right, mom and dad, call them grown-ups, folks, or family. Parents, grown-ups, folks, family, or guardians. Nanny babysitter is a caregiver guardian. Is adopted, was adopted, that one I'm not sure. Instead of saying husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, say spouse, partner, significant other. They just want to rewrite the English language. What religion are you? You shouldn't ask that. You should ask, are any religious faith traditions important to you? I guess, what religion are you? Too much pressure on you. Oh my God, what religion am I? What did you get for Christmas? What are you going to be for Halloween? You should say, do you celebrate holidays? Merry Christmas is have a great break. Where did you go from break? Anyway, it goes on like this. Everyone has, some people have, don't make generalizations generally. Boys and girls, guys, ladies and gentlemen, you should say people, folk, friends, readers, mathematicians. Mathematicians. What if they're not? And on, and on, and on, and on. You don't say diverse minority. You say person of color. Yes, let's emphasize that color. God forbid you become colorblind. Person of color. Or you can also use marginalized identity. So make them a victim right off the bat. Not minority, yeah, this in a smaller group than the rest. No, marginalized group. Marginalized group. Aye. And on and on and on it goes. There's some great graphs here. Let me see if I can find them. Yeah, maybe it was in a different article. So anyway, this is what they're teaching at these very exclusive schools that are very difficult to get into. An English teacher at Harvard Westlake, which is in California, when they came back from summer, the teacher said, this is her introduction to the class, I am a queer white woman. You're not supposed to say woman. You're supposed to say woman. I have no idea what that's about. Somebody will have to educate me in one of those re-education camps. Of European descent, I use she, her pronouns, but also feel comfortable using they, them pronouns. This pronoun stuff is really, really, really spooky. It reminds me of Anthem, Ayn Rand's novelette, Anthem, where nobody could say I. Everything was we. At the best prep schools in America today, woke culture, woke language, woke mentality, woke guilt is just accepted. It's just standard. And if you don't participate, beware. Our students today, high school students today, are being, educated in resentment and fear and guilt. You either are a victim or an oppressor. There's no such thing as in Galt's oath, neither sacrifice my life to others or others to myself. No, you're either a sacrificer or being sacrificed. There is no alternative. Right? They don't call Newton's laws anymore because, hey, that's too individualistic. It's just laws of the universe, fundamental laws of physics. I mean, really, we really have to get away from this white-centric view of science. In U.S. history class, they don't learn about U.S. history, period by period, cause and effect, what happened, names of presidents, I don't know. No, instead they trace different marginalized groups and see how the oppression was structured and how they were treated and how they were victims. Some schools, like Bredenwood, another school in California, held racially segregated dialogue and community building sessions. And it just goes on and on. You know, Ibram Kendi, the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist, who's a racist, is worshipped in these programs. And I did a whole show on him last summer, so if you're interested, you can go back and find my show on anti-racism. Oh, here it is. I knew there was the pyramid of racism, right? So you help establish a foundation for racism. If you say things like, there are two sides to every story, or not all white people fill in the blank, that's the beginning of racism. That's the foundation, right? If you don't accept white people, or if you say something like, it's just a joke. Or if you say, but my black friend said. Or if you say there's a post-racial society. There could be a post-racial society. Now, you're already laying the foundation for racism if you accept any of those terms. You're basically laying the foundation to what's at the top of the pyramid, which is genocide. So be careful. Why can't we all just get along, for example, which I hate that term, but why can't we just get along, is basically laying the foundation for genocide. Right. And you can go, I mean, it's just, white girl came home, one of the lower grades, so this is a primary school, came home one day and told their father, quote, all people with lighter skin don't like people with dark skin and are mean to them. I mean, her father was horrified. Did he go to school to complain? Probably not. Cowards. Even when, people raise their hand to ask questions in class, if you're white and male, back of the line. You get to ask a question last. Maybe I should institute that on the Super Chat. You should identify your race and your intersectionality score so that I can decide how to rank you in terms of whether I will answer your question or not. Forget dollars. We'll do it by intersectionality score. No, let's use dollars. I like dollars. Much better. Another mother confided that the son said to her, Mom, I just found out I'm a racist and I prefer white Europeans. Her child is a mixed race because he did one of these, what do you call them, implicit bias tests. And the implicit bias test told him, even though he's a mixed race kid, that he is a racist who prefers whites. Or when parents complain, they're told they can't understand the issue because their skin is white. So stop complaining. And of course, all these kids say that all this does is make them think about race more. And they lie to their teachers in order to mouth the theory, even if they don't believe it. But some of it gets sunk in. And some of it has the opposite effect, which I've always claimed. The more the minority racists, the more the anti-racist racists get stronger, the more they get stronger, the more the white racists will get stronger. The more reason they give the white racists to get stronger. So Joey says he's a black, atheist, Jewish, male objectivist. Wait a minute, I don't think that's possible. How can you be a black, atheist, Jewish objectivist? Male, okay. I don't know. I think actually being an objectivist we're the most underrepresented group. We have no representation anyway. Nobody, we're discriminated against all the time. I think that should put us in the lowest. Then if you're black and an objectivist, oh my God, you're super intersectional. And if you're black and Jewish and an atheist and an objectivist, yeah, I mean, you needed to be trans. Joe, if you were trans, you would win the ultimate intersectionality battle. Trans who identified as, there has to be something there that would make it, yeah. I don't know if 20, is that bad? 28 is old, I think, right? Or is that young? Or is that, I don't know. I don't know if how age factors into it. Ageism. Now notice all this happening in the background. Where public schools, these private schools are all open. Public schools are closed. Now some of you might say, well, that's good because public school is so bad. Well, for many of these kids, even public schools is better than being at home. Public schools save many of these kids. We might think that public schools are an awful education, and they are relative to the alternatives that we know exist. But for many people, these are the best opportunities they have. Thank you, Joe. Public schools are closed. A lot of black kids in poor neighborhoods are stuck at home not learning anything. Stuck at home in very unpleasant, often family environments. That's a problem that needs to be dealt with. And at the same time, you've got rich kids going to very expensive schools being taught this garbage. But these rich kids are going to be the intellectuals, the politicians, the business leaders of the future. I mean, some of them at least. They're going to go to good schools, have good connections. Many of them are ambitious. And yet, a school like Dalton, another one of these prep schools, is committed to being visibly, vocally, and structurally anti-racist. And corporations are getting into the act, as we know. Bain & Company, one of the leading consulting firms in the world, has tweeted about Wumpsons. How many of you are Wumpsons? Am I a Melksons? Is this? I don't know how this works. Wumpsons. How do you get to change the spelling of words? What is required? What's the precondition for that? Anyway, Wumpsons History Month. The Cartoon Network is imploring children to see color, skin color. Wumpsons is WOMXN. And Coca-Cola employees were recently instructed to be less white. I don't think I can be less white. Now, this is in the top schools. Remember the public schools in San Francisco changing the names of their schools, taking away Abraham Lincoln because he was a racist somehow? The name. They've reversed, by the way, and we'll talk about the backlash against all of this. High school teachers encouraged or told, not encouraged, to stop teaching Kill a Mockingbird or Mice and Men. Public schools are not immune to this, I'd say nonsense, but it's worse than nonsense, this evil. Now, this is the consequence. This is the consequence of the left's dominance of our intellectual institutions that is now filtered down to high schools, it was inevitable. It always does. The Marxism, the anti-capitalism has been filtering down to our high schools for decades. And nothing was done about it. The altruism, the collectivism has been trickling down to our schools for decades, maybe a century, and nothing's been done about it. No opposition. Certainly no intellectual opposition. Now, it's about race. Now it's about the most barbaric form of all collectivism, the most disgusting form of all altruism. You should feel guilty for the color of your skin. You should feel like a victim because of the color of your skin. You owe somebody because they're a victim somehow and you're an oppressor somehow. Divorced from your independent action. All attributable to the color of your skin. All attributable to the group that you belong to. This is the consequence of collectivism going unchallenged by left and right for generations. Nobody has talked against the collectivists. And even if they have or tried to, in the name of what? What alternative is they presented? With the exception of Ayn Rand, there is no individualist movement in America. It's not like conservatives are individualists. Republicans are individualists. They're just collectivists of a form that is slightly more appealing to us. Partially because they're more linked to tradition. And the tradition in America has been pretty good, so they're linked to something that's pretty good. Not because they believe it, not because they understand it, not because they embrace it, but because it's tradition. When this collectivism goes unchallenged, then what you get is the rise, the growth, the entrenchment of barbaric ideologies. And that's what we're seeing. Barbarism in our high schools, and in our best high schools, in the high schools that people are paying $50,000 a year to go to get this. Now, because it has become so self-evident, so obvious, so in your face, and because this goes beyond just criticizing capitalism, which everybody supports, nobody's against that, but now deals with one of the things that people care about, which is their individual identity. Because the majority in this country are being called racists because of the color of their skin, people are starting to speak up. People are starting to object. Indeed, the city of San Francisco has reversed its decision about renaming the schools, at least for now, because of the backlash that they got.
And to begin with, I wonder if I can ask you to capsulize. I know this is difficult. Can I ask you to capsulize your philosophy? What is Randism?
First of all, I do not call it Randism, and I don't like that name. I call it objectivism.
All right.
Meaning a philosophy based on objective reality. Now let me explain it as briefly as I can. First, my philosophy is based on the concept that reality exists as an objective absolute, that man's mind, reason, is his means of perceiving it, and that man needs a rational morality. I am primarily the creator of a new code of morality which has so far been believed impossible, namely a morality not based on faith.
On faith?
Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason, a morality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right, all right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest.
May I?
All right, before we go on, reminder, please like the show. We've got 163 live listeners right now, 30 likes, that should be at least 100. I figure at least 100 of you actually like the show. Maybe there are like 60 of the Matthews out there who hate it, but at least the people who are liking it, you know, I want to see a thumbs up. There you go. Start liking it. I want to see that go to 100. All it takes is a click of a thing. Whether you're looking at this, and you know, the likes matter. It's not an issue of my ego. It's an issue of the algorithm. The more you like something, the more the algorithm likes it. So, you know, and if you don't like the show, give it a thumbs down. Let's see your actual views being reflected in the likes. But if you like it, don't just sit there. Help get the show promoted. Of course, you should also share, and you can support the show at JeronBrooksShow.com/support, or on Patreon or Subscribestar or Locals. And show your support for the work, for the value hopefully you're receiving from this. And of course, don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, even if you just come here to troll, or even if you're here like Matthew to defend Marx, then you should subscribe, because that way you'll know when to show up. You'll know what shows are on, when they're on. You'll get notified, right? So yes, like, share, subscribe, support. Like, share, subscribe, support. There you go. Easy. Do one or all of those, please.